I always thought the most humiliating moment of my life would be that time in college when I accidentally walked into the wrong classroom, sat through an entire lecture on advanced quantum physics, which I was definitely not taking, and even nodded along like I understood something before realizing I was supposed to be in accounting 101 next door. Turns out, life had been saving up something even better for me. It started with a misplaced sock. Not some scandalous, out-of-place, men's sock that didn't belong to me. No, that would have been too easy. This was my own sock, or at least I thought it was, until I put it on and nearly dislocated my pinky toe. Because somehow, the elastic had been stretched to the size of a baby elephant's ankle. That's when the detective in me woke up. Now, I'm not saying I immediately suspected Ariana of foul play because of one tragic sock mishap. But when I picked up its twin from the laundry basket, and it was perfectly fine, my brain, against my own will, began assembling a PowerPoint presentation titled Suspicious Household Incidents, Volume 1. Slide 1. The sock. The freakishly loose sock. Slide 2. The missing couch pillow. Just one of them. Not two. Not all. Just one. Who removes a single pillow? Psychopaths and people with something to hide. Slide 3. The ceiling fan in the guest room was on. Nobody had stayed over in months. We are not the kind of people who turn on a fan for decorative purposes. Coincidences? Maybe. But life had trained me to believe in patterns. So, I did what any mature, rational adult would do. I went full-on suburban Sherlock Holmes. I started paying closer attention to things, tiny things. The way Ariana's car keys were always left on the counter now, instead of in the bowl by the door like usual. The way she was suddenly an expert at making 2 cups of coffee in the morning when I don't even drink coffee. I'm a proud juice man. Thank you very much. The way she started wearing socks to bed, which she has aggressively hated for the entirety of our marriage, as if suddenly her ankles needed the witness protection program. And then, the real jackpot. One evening, I walked into the garage to grab my golf clubs. Haven't actually played golf in 3 years, but I like to keep up the illusion, and noticed something deeply unsettling. Ariana's yoga mat was out. Now, I know what you're thinking. Mike, that's not exactly Watergate-level evidence. And you'd be right. But the thing is, my wife hates yoga, despises it. She once called it stretching for people who like suffering. She has openly mocked the entire industry for years. She even went to one class with a friend just so she could have more material to roast it with later. And yet, there it was, unrolled, as if she had willingly and purposefully yoga-ed in our garage. I stared at it like it was a crime scene. The mat had faint indentations, the kind you'd see after someone had actually used it. And there, right next to it, was an empty plastic water bottle, a brand neither of us ever buy. And that's when it hit me. Someone had been stretching in my garage. And it wasn't me. And it definitely wasn't Ariana. I didn't immediately jump to conclusions. That's something crazy people do. Rational people, like myself, gather evidence. They approach things with logic, reason, and a calm, measured response. So naturally, my first move was to stand in the garage for an uncomfortably long time, staring at that yoga mat like it had personally insulted my entire family lineage. Then, I did what any sane person would do. I sat down at my workbench, took out a notepad, and wrote, "Who is doing secret yoga in my garage?" This was officially an investigation. The first step in any high-stakes case is eliminating the impossible. I knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that I was not the one using the yoga mat. That left only Ariana, or someone else entirely. Since Ariana had spent the last decade aggressively campaigning against the entire concept of yoga, it was safe to assume that if she had suddenly become yoga's #1 fan, there was a reason, and that reason was not me. Now, I considered asking her about it directly. A normal, well-adjusted husband would have just walked inside and said, "Hey honey, when did you start doing yoga in the garage?" But I've been married long enough to know that directly asking things is a rookie move. There are only 2 possible outcomes. She has a perfectly reasonable explanation, and I look like a moron for suspecting anything. She has a perfectly rehearsed lie, and I look like a moron for suspecting anything. Either way, I end up looking like a moron. That was unacceptable. So instead, I did something much smarter. I left everything exactly as it was and waited. Because if there's one thing I know, it's this. People are creatures of habit. If someone had been secretly yoganji in my garage, they were bound to come back. And sure enough, they did. It happened 2 days later. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Ariana had just left to go run errands. That phrase had started showing up a lot more lately. She used to say specific things like, "I'm going to Target," or "I need to pick up some things at the pharmacy." But now, it was just errands. Vague, mysterious, perfectly designed to prevent follow-up questions. As soon as she was gone, I positioned myself by the kitchen window, the one with the best view of the garage. And then, I waited. It took about 15 minutes. The garage door opened, and in walked a man. Now, let me pause here for a second, because I need you to fully appreciate what I was seeing. This wasn't some random, forgettable dude. No, this guy looked like he had been handcrafted in a laboratory specifically to irritate me. He was one of those guys. You know the type. The kind of guy who wears tank tops year-round, regardless of the weather. The kind of guy who has hair that somehow looks both messy and perfectly styled at the same time. The kind of guy who probably says things like, "It's all about the vibes, man," without a hint of irony. I hated him instantly. And here he was, standing in my garage, looking way too comfortable. He tossed a gym bag onto the floor, stretched his arms like he was about to lead a motivational seminar, and then, without hesitation, stepped onto the yoga mat. I nearly choked on my own disbelief. This man, this intruder, this walking protein shake advertisement, had just waltzed into my garage, rolled out his shoulders, and started doing some kind of advanced stretching routine like he owned the place. I watched, in silent horror, as he bent, twisted, and contorted himself into poses that no human body should be capable of. At one point, he did this absurd move where he balanced on one hand, while extending his legs in a way that defied both gravity and good taste. I had seen enough. This wasn't just some random mistake. This wasn't a neighbor who wandered into the wrong garage. No, this was a man with a routine. A routine that involved my wife's yoga mat. And worst of all, he looked like he had done this many, many times before. I took out my notepad and scribbled, "Yoga guy?" under my original question. Then, just as quickly as he arrived, he finished his weird little stretching circus, grabbed his bag, and left. And that's when I noticed something. Something that sent my irritation into overdrive. This absolute menace, this stranger who had been secretly exercising in my garage, hadn't even put the yoga mat back properly. I could handle a lot of things. But blatant disrespect for proper mat storage etiquette? That was a step too far. So now, I had choices. Confront Ariana about the yoga guy, and risk tipping her off before I had the full picture. Follow her, and see if I could connect some dots myself. Break into full spy mode and gather undeniable evidence before making my move. The answer was obvious. It was time for covert surveillance. I always thought people who carried around little notebooks to jot things down were overdoing it. Who even has time for that? Well, turns out I do, because I now had a whole section dedicated to Yoga Guy and his suspiciously flexible behavior. The notes were precise. Date, time, activities, level of audacity. But just writing things down wasn't enough. I needed more. I needed a plan. Step 1. Figure out if this guy had a name other than Yoga Guy. Step 2. Determine how long my garage had been doubling as his personal stretching sanctuary. Step 3. Confirm whether my wife was aware that an unidentified man was bending himself into complicated shapes on her yoga mat, because there was still a very slim chance that she was an innocent victim in all of this. I had an idea. It wasn't a good idea, but at this point, I was fully committed to the role of a suburban detective. That night, while Ariana was in the shower, I casually walked into our bedroom, picked up her phone from the nightstand, and opened the fitness app she had downloaded a few months ago. The app she had allegedly never used. The app that, for some reason, had notifications turned on. Now, let me be clear. I didn't hack anything. I didn't guess her password. I didn't go through her messages. I simply opened an already unlocked app, which, in my book, was fair game. And there it was. Thursday, 3 p.m. Great session today, guys. See you next week. Guys? Plural? So now, there wasn't just one person involved in these secret garage workouts. There were multiple participants. I needed more. I clicked the message, and up came a group chat. Reminder, next session is Saturday. Same spot. Can't wait. Let's go. And then, the name that made my stomach drop. Nate, admin, bringing some new techniques this week. Let's push ourselves. Of course his name was Nate. Of course he was the admin. Of course he had new techniques he was dying to share. I had to meet this guy. Not through Ariana. Not through an awkward confrontation. I needed to see him in action, to observe his techniques firsthand. Step 4. Attend a session. Saturday afternoon. I prepared myself. Gym clothes? Check. Water bottle? Check. Unshakable commitment to exposing whatever nonsense was happening in my garage? Check. Ariana had left the house earlier than usual. She had errands. Again. Perfect. This gave me time to show up first. I walked into my own garage like a man ready to reclaim his territory. No more sneaking around. No more note-taking. I was here to be a participant. Then, right on schedule, they arrived. Nate, the leader of the questionable stretching cult, waltzed in first. He was exactly what I expected. Somewhere in his early 30s, athletic, and radiating an energy that made me want to fight him on principle. He wasn't doing anything wrong per se, but something about the way he casually placed his hands on his hips while scanning the room made my patience evaporate. Behind him, 2 other people followed. A woman in her 40s who looked way too enthusiastic about whatever was about to happen, and a guy my age who gave off the distinct vibe of someone who had been dragged here against his will. "Hey, man," Nate said, offering me the universal bro nod. "New face. You here for the session?" I nodded. "Yeah, just wanted to see what all the hype was about." Nate grinned, clearly pleased with himself. "Nice, man. Love it. We keep it low-key but effective. No judgment, just movement, you know?" Oh, I knew. The session started, and I did my best to keep up without looking like a complete amateur. But here's the thing. I wasn't there for the workout. I was watching everything. Who was talking to who? Who seemed too comfortable in my garage? Who looked like they belonged and who didn't? And that's when I noticed it. The guest room key. It was sitting on the small table by the entrance, right next to Nate's car keys. Now, I don't know how often people bring extra house keys to casual group fitness sessions, but I personally had never once needed access to a guest room mid-stretch. My garage. My wife's yoga mat. And now, a guest room key. This was no longer a theory. This was real. I wrapped up my fake workout as soon as I could, muttered some excuse about needing to grab something from inside, and casually walked toward the house. I picked up the key, held it for a second. Then, I walked upstairs, straight to the guest room. I had no idea what I was about to find, but I knew one thing. I wasn't leaving until I had proof. The guest room door was closed. Not locked, just closed. I stood there, key in one hand, other hand on the doorknob, wondering how exactly I had reached this point in life where I was about to investigate my own house like some low-budget detective who couldn't even afford a proper trench coat. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. First thing I noticed? The bed was made. That might not seem important, but this was a guest room. Nobody had slept in here for months, and last I checked, I wasn't in the habit of making beds I never used. Ariana? She wouldn't bother either, which meant someone had been in here recently enough to fix it. Second thing? A duffel bag in the corner. Not mine. Not Ariana's. The tag on it read Nate W. Oh, come on. I walked over, unzipped it. Gym clothes, a shaker bottle, some random health supplements. And then, at the bottom of the bag, a phone charger. Not just any charger. A very specific charger that fit a phone model that neither Ariana nor I owned. So, Yoga Guy was charging his phone in my guest room now. Fantastic. Because why not? What's next? Is he going to start forwarding his mail here? But the best part? Oh, the best part was what I found on the nightstand. A receipt. For a hotel room. And here's where it got really interesting. It wasn't just some random receipt crumpled up and forgotten. No, this one had a note scribbled on the back in handwriting that was painfully familiar. Next time, let's go somewhere with a sauna. A. As in Ariana. As in my wife. And just like that, the whole picture came together. The weird behavior. The sudden interest in yoga. The guest room key that Yoga Guy casually had in his possession. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't misinterpreting innocent situations. My wife was cheating with Nate the human pretzel, who had somehow turned my garage into his own personal yoga studio and my guest room into his personal locker room. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about the level of disrespect, the sheer casual audacity of it. I put the receipt back exactly where I found it. I zipped up the duffel bag, and then I walked back downstairs like nothing had happened. Because now, it was time for revenge, and I wasn't going to just pack a suitcase and storm out. No, no, no. That's what reasonable people do. I was going to make sure Ariana and Nate deeply regretted every single choice they had made. First step? Control the narrative. I grabbed my laptop, pulled up an email draft, and started typing. The recipients? Ariana's entire friend group. The subject? Surprise. Nate's private yoga sessions, now with hotel perks. I laid it out. No unnecessary drama, just cold, factual evidence. The yoga sessions, the guest room key, the hotel receipt with the note. Attached photos, just in case anyone thought I was making it up. And then, at the end, a small but necessary detail. For those of you who think I'm being petty, don't worry. I'm handling this in a calm, mature, and respectable way. Just wanted everyone to be fully informed before Ariana starts spinning her own version of events. Wouldn't want the truth to get lost in translation. Best, Mike. Send. Step 2. Financial lockdown. Ariana had access to our shared bank account, which I had been contributing a lot more to than her. That changed immediately. I transferred my savings into a new account under my name only. I canceled the credit card she had a copy of. And then I did one final, beautiful thing. I called the hotel from the receipt. Hey, I just stayed there recently, and I think I left something in my room. The woman on the phone was helpful. Of course, sir. What room number? I gave her the number from the receipt. Let me check. It looks like we did find a few items left behind. Really? I said, faking surprise. What kind of items? A pair of sneakers, a water bottle, and, oh, there was a phone charger too. A charger. Of course. That's great, I said. But you know what? I think that actually belongs to someone else. I'm not sure why it was in my name, but that was for my friend. His name is Nate W. Oh, well, in that case, we can hold on to it for him if he wants to pick it up. Oh, no need, I said, smiling. Actually, could you call him and let him know his stuff is there? We can definitely do that. Perfect. Oh, and could you let him know his wife called earlier looking for him? Just, in case he asks. There was a small pause. His wife. Yes. Sounded really upset. Just thought he should know. I hung up. Step 3? Wait. Because soon, very soon, the reactions would start rolling in. Ariana would get messages. Nate would get a fun little call from a hotel that had absolutely no record of his wife existing but now strongly believed she did. And best of all, everyone was going to know. No arguments. No yelling. No dramatic confrontations. Just cold, calculated humiliation. And I would be sitting back, enjoying every second of it. I didn't have to wait long. The beauty of modern technology is that news travels fast, especially when that news involves a married woman, a yoga instructor, and a secret hotel receipt. The first message came from Ariana's best friend, Lisa. Lisa? What? Call me right now. Nah, Lisa. You can sit with this information for a bit. Then, a text from Ariana herself. Ariana. Mike, what did you do? Oh, sweetheart. You know exactly what I did. But I wasn't done yet. See, exposing the truth was just phase 1. Phase 2? That was going to be way more entertaining. First, I needed to make a few strategic adjustments to our home. Since Nate had so generously made himself comfortable in my garage and guest room, I decided he needed a proper welcome gift. I grabbed a big piece of cardboard, a black marker, and wrote, Yoga retreat closed due to unsanitary conditions. Thanks for your participation. I taped it directly to the garage door. Next, I went to the guest room, took all of Nate's stuff from his duffel bag, and spread it out on the lawn. Nice and neat, like a display at a yard sale. Gym shorts? Check. Tank top? Check. Protein powder? Check. That stupid phone charger? Front and center. Then, I took a second sign and wrote, Lost and found. If your name is Nate, please collect your items. Your key privileges have been revoked. I set up a lawn chair right by the door, grabbed a drink, and waited. And oh, did it pay off beautifully. 20 minutes later, Ariana pulled up. She stepped out of her car, looking around like she had just walked into an alternate reality. And to be fair, from her perspective, that's probably what it felt like. Her eyes landed on the sign on the garage first. A little twitch in her jaw. A step forward. Then, she saw Nate's belongings spread across the lawn. Then, she saw me, sitting comfortably with my drink like a man who had absolutely no worries left in the world. She opened her mouth to say something, but before she could, Nate's car pulled in right behind her. Oh, this was going to be amazing. Nate stepped out, looking exactly like the kind of guy who never expects consequences. His eyes went straight to the lawn, then to Ariana, then to me, and then back to his stuff on the grass. I gave him a little wave. Hey, Nate, I said. Lost something? Ariana spun toward him. What are you doing here? She hissed. Oh, the audacity of this woman. I don't know, I said, stretching out in my chair. Maybe he just came to pick up the things he left behind? You know, since he's been staying in my house and using my garage like a public gym? Nate looked at Ariana. You told me he was cool with it. Oh, that was beautiful. Ariana, I said, leaning forward. Did you tell your little yoga buddy that I was cool with the two of you sneaking around? She looked trapped. Mike, I held up my hand. No need to explain, sweetheart. I got all the information I needed from the hotel receipt you so thoughtfully left behind. The one where you requested a sauna next time? Nate, proving once again that he was not a particularly bright man, decided that now was the perfect time to speak up. Dude, it's not like that, he said. I gestured toward the lawn. Then by all means, enlighten me, Nate. What exactly is it like? You just accidentally found yourself stretching in my garage? You tripped and fell into my guest room? And then, purely by coincidence, you ended up in a hotel with my wife, talking about your next visit to a sauna? Ariana looked like she wanted to disappear. Nate, to his credit, had at least enough shame to start gathering his belongings from the yard like a raccoon caught stealing from a picnic. Ariana finally tried to switch tactics. Mike, can we talk about this privately? I let out a laugh. Oh, now you want privacy? When you were sneaking around with Stretch Armstrong over here, privacy wasn't really a concern, was it? She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned back to Nate, hissing, Why are you even here right now? And I swear to you. Nate looked at her, shrugged, and said, You texted me and said we needed to talk. This moron. Ariana turned pale. Then, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, looked at the screen. Then, slowly, oh so slowly, she looked at me. I smiled. Yeah, that might have been me. See, back when I was gathering evidence, I had borrowed her phone for a brief moment. Not long enough to do anything drastic, just long enough to send Nate a text from her number telling him to come over at this exact time. Because if I was going to expose everything, I wanted both of them to be present for it. Ariana looked ready to explode. You set this up? Set this up? I repeated, acting offended. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were all about surprises now. Like surprise yoga sessions in my garage, or surprise hotel receipts with sauna requests. Just keeping up with the theme, babe. She had no response to that. Nate, now fully aware that he was not winning this battle, had finished collecting his stuff. I'm just gonna go. I gestured toward his car. Great idea, Nate. And while you're driving off, feel free to never come back to my house again. He got in his car and left. Just like that. No final words. No grand defense. Just an awkward, deeply embarrassing retreat. Ariana, though, she was still standing there, like she hadn't fully processed what had just happened. Mike, she tried again. Please. I stood up, stretched. Oh, don't worry. I'm done embarrassing you. For now. Then, I picked up the envelope I had prepared earlier and tossed it at her feet. What's this? She asked. Divorce papers, I said. Already signed by me. All you gotta do is add your signature. Thought I'd save you the trouble of sneaking around behind my back again. Her face completely crumbled. And me? I walked inside, whistling the happiest tune I could think of. Because this was just the beginning. I sat in my living room, sipping a drink that wasn't whiskey, because I'm not in a movie, feeling the kind of satisfaction that can only come from a well-executed plan. The garage was officially Nate-free. The guest room no longer doubled as a locker room for an amateur yoga cult. And Ariana? Well, Ariana was standing in the front yard, staring at the divorce papers like they were written in ancient hieroglyphics. She looked up at me through the window, probably expecting me to come out and deliver some final dramatic speech. Nope, not happening. I just lifted my glass to her like I was toasting her terrible life choices and went back to enjoying my evening. Then, my phone buzzed. Lisa, Mike, she's calling everyone and saying you're overreacting. That it wasn't really cheating. That you set her up. LOL. Of course she was. Classic Ariana move. Deny. Deflect. Play the victim. I wasn't worried. The email I sent earlier? The one with all the receipts? Yeah, that did its job beautifully. People weren't buying her story. And just to be extra sure, I took a screenshot of Lisa's message and dropped it into the same email thread. Oh, she's calling it a setup now? That's wild, considering she never actually denied a single thing when I confronted her in person. Just making sure everyone stays updated. Mike. Send. Meanwhile, Ariana was still standing in the yard like she was waiting for a director to yell, "Cut," so she could try a different take. Eventually, she picked up the divorce papers and stormed off. I wasn't expecting her to sign immediately. That would have been too easy. But I had time. And speaking of time, I had one last loose end to tie up. I pulled up my laptop and opened a new email. To Nate's Workplace HR. Subject, important inquiry about employee conduct. Hi there. I wanted to bring something to your attention regarding one of your employees, Nate W. I recently discovered that he has been using my private residence, without permission, to conduct personal activities during work hours. I have multiple witnesses who can confirm this, as well as physical evidence. Given that your company values integrity and professionalism, I thought you'd want to be aware. Let me know if you'd like any further details. Best. Mike, ***. Send. Now, before anyone calls me petty, let's be clear. This wasn't revenge. This was a public service. If Nate had enough free time to turn my garage into a wellness retreat, book hotels with my wife, and generally behave like a human-shaped red flag, then clearly, he wasn't too busy at work. And in this economy, I just couldn't, in good conscience, let his employer waste money like that. I was doing my part for corporate efficiency. 2 days later, I got a response. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We take matters like these very seriously, and we'll be conducting an internal review. HR department. Translation? Nate was about to have a very bad week. Now, you might think this is where the story ends. That I kicked Ariana out, moved on with my life, and never looked back. Not quite. Because 1 week later, she showed up at my door. Dressed in regular clothes this time. No fake errand run, no gym outfit designed to confuse me into thinking she was finding herself through stretching. Just Ariana, standing there, looking like she had actually processed the consequences of her actions for the first time in her life. I opened the door but didn't say anything. She took a deep breath. Mike, can we talk? I gestured toward the lawn. We did talk. Right out there. You remember. Nate was there. His stuff was there. My patience was there. But now? Yeah, that's all gone. She sighed. I need you to know that it wasn't serious. I messed up, but it didn't mean anything. I laughed. Not the friendly kind. The "are you actually still trying this" kind. Ariana, I said, let's say I went behind your back, lied to you for months, and booked hotel rooms with another woman. Then, when you found out, I tried to act like you were the crazy one. Would you be standing here, telling me it didn't mean anything? Silence. Exactly. She shifted on her feet. I miss you. You miss what I provided, I corrected. You miss the security, the predictability. You don't miss me, Ariana. You miss not dealing with the consequences of your actions. She blinked like she wasn't expecting me to have the audacity to call it what it was. I leaned against the doorframe. Look, you can keep trying to spin it however you want, but facts are facts. You betrayed me. You disrespected our marriage. And I'm not the kind of guy who just smiles and pretends everything is fine so you can sleep better at night. She stared at me for a long moment, like she was waiting for me to say something that would let her off the hook. Instead, I smiled. You should go, I said. I've got a life to enjoy. And just like that, I closed the door. That was the last real conversation we ever had. The divorce? Finalized in record time. Nate lost his job. Turns out, his company wasn't thrilled to find out that he was using lunch breaks for non-work activities. Ariana tried dating him for a bit. That lasted about 6 weeks before she realized that a guy who sneaks around with married women might not be great long-term relationship material. Me? I moved on. No dramatic rebound. No sudden life-changing epiphanies about love. Just a clear understanding that I deserved better. And the satisfaction of knowing that, for once, someone who thought they could get away with everything got exactly what they deserved. And honestly, that was enough. The end. Thanks for watching. Rate the story in the comments. Subscribe to the channel